The brass service bell is sitting under the conference room screen when Grant Mercer unveils the campaign I built. He clicks through my films, my radio scripts, my rollout map. Even the blue pencil circles I drew around the customer quotes are there. Then the final slide fades in. Bring us the problem, a Grant Mercer concept. Brilliant, my strongest concept yet, he says, while my name disappears. I stay seated as he accepts every compliment. Across the table, Lena Vale watches me instead of him. Then she reaches for the controls. You'll have to explain something, Grant. She presses play. The screen fills with the original workshop recording. There I am in Hearthline Hardware's stockroom, holding the same brass bell and saying the campaign line Grant has just claimed as his own. He turns toward me. What frightens me isn't the anger in his face. It's the fact that Lena must have known before we walked into the room. 6 weeks earlier, that bell had been buried behind 3 boxes of copper fittings and a coffee maker that looked old enough to have union representation. Found it, Lena called from the stockroom. She emerged holding the bell by its chipped black base. It was brass, palm-sized, and dented along one edge. When she pressed the top, it gave a tired little ding. Grant looked up from his phone. That's the famous bell? My father kept it at the service counter, Lena said, back when he was still allowed at the service counter. A few of Hearthline's regional managers laughed. Lena's father, Martin Vale, had founded the company with 1 store and a delivery van. At 73, he was chairman in the ceremonial sense and an unauthorized consultant in every other sense. He still wandered into stores, rearranged displays, and gave managers advice that began with, in 1989, we solved this by, Lena set the bell in the middle of the table. He used to disappear into receiving and tell customers to ring this if they needed him. Our workshop rule is, every time someone says something true enough to be useful, we ring it. Grant smiled politely. I love a ritual. He used the same tone when he said, I love a challenge, usually 5 minutes before assigning the challenge to someone else. We were gathered around folding tables in Hearthline's flagship store outside Columbus. The stockroom smelled like cardboard, machine oil, and burned coffee. Someone had taped brown workshop paper across one wall. I had 3 blue carpenter's pencils in my pocket because regular pencils vanished from hardware stores with supernatural speed. A red light glowed above the stockroom door. Lena pointed to it. Recording is on. Darcy, Omar, and Phil couldn't travel, so we're letting them watch later. Everyone signed the release? There were nods around the table. Grant lifted 2 fingers without looking up. He was answering a message beneath the tabletop. Good, Lena said. Then let's make something worth replaying. At Bellwether Creative, Grant was the person clients remembered. He had silver beginning at his temples, immaculate dark shirts, and an ability to make whatever you had just said sound more expensive when he repeated it. He could walk into a room full of skeptical executives, identify the person who actually controlled the decision, and make that person feel privately understood. He was also 1 promotion away from executive creative director. Hearthline was supposed to be the account that got him there. They had 214 stores across Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania. National chains beat them on price and inventory. Online retailers beat them on convenience. Hearthline's advantage was that someone behind the counter usually knew which washer fit a 40-year-old faucet. But our employees know washers was not the kind of sentence Grant wanted on a billboard. He stood in front of the brown paper and uncapped a black marker. Let's start with aspiration, he said. When customers walk into Hearthline, who do they want to become? Ray Calder, who managed the southeastern region, leaned back until his chair complained. Someone whose basement isn't filling with water. The room laughed. Lena rang the bell. Grant waited for the laughter to settle. Sure, but emotionally. Emotionally, Ray said, they want the water to stop. Another ding. I lowered my head so Grant wouldn't see me smile. He glanced at me anyway. Mara, help me out. I had worked with Grant for 4 years. When he said help me out, he meant turn this into the answer I expected. I looked at Ray. When that customer comes in, what do they ask for? Half the time? The wrong thing. What do they bring? Ray counted on his fingers. Pictures, broken pieces. Once a guy brought me the whole faucet. Still attached to the sink? Tessa asked. Give us some credit. He took it off first. Tessa Nguyen sat beside me with a legal pad divided into columns. Idea, owner, cost, problem. Most people brought notebooks to creative workshops to record inspiration. Tessa brought one to identify where inspiration might catch fire. I picked up a blue carpenter's pencil and wrote, pictures, broken pieces, wrong words on the paper. What happens when they don't know what they need? I asked. Ray shrugged. We figure it out. A store manager named Simone leaned forward. First, we have to get them to stop apologizing. That changed the room. Lena's hand hovered over the bell, but she didn't ring it yet. What do they apologize for? I asked, not knowing the name of something, taking up time, bringing in a dirty part. Simone rubbed her thumb against one of the paper coffee cups. People come to the counter already embarrassed, especially if they tried 2 things that didn't work. Grant wrote confidence in large black letters. Exactly, he said, so we empower them. Simone's mouth tightened. I knew that look. Empower was an agency word. It sounded useful and did no work. What do you actually say? I asked her. She looked at me. Usually? You don't need to know what it's called. Show me what happened. Lena rang the bell. The dented brass sound cut through the hum of the ventilation system. I wrote Simone's sentence on the paper with the blue pencil, pressing hard enough that the flat lead caught in the fibers. Grant stepped closer. There's something in expertise without judgment. Maybe, I said. He glanced sideways at me. You don't like it. It sounds like we're describing ourselves. I think we should describe what the customer can do. So what can they do? I circled Simone's sentence, then drew a line from pictures to broken pieces. Bring us the problem. No one spoke for a second. Lena rang the bell once, then again. Tessa wrote something on her legal pad and slid it toward me. Well, hell, I laughed under my breath. Grant stared at the paper. I could see him working through it, not just as a line, but as an image. A rusted hinge on a white background, a phone showing a photograph of a leaking pipe, a radio spot beginning with a strange mechanical noise. He was good. That was always part of the trouble. He took the black marker and wrote, "Bring us the problem" above my blue line. What if the whole campaign is an invitation? He said. Not polished projects, real messes. Counter stories, I said. People describe what happened before we show what they brought in. Employees as translators, Simone added. Repair clinics tied to the stories, Ray said. Otherwise, every store gets asked about a campaign they can't deliver. Tessa tapped her pen. Clinic kits need to be modular. Different stores have different floor space, staffing, and co-op budgets. Grant began pacing. Film could be beautiful, extreme close-ups, hands, materials. That emotional moment when somebody admits they don't know. The emotional moment is when they realize that's okay, I said. He pointed the marker at me. Yes, that. Lena was watching the brown paper. My father's going to want the bell in it. Grant looked at the dented object on the table. The bell may be a little sentimental, he said carefully. We should avoid making the brand feel like a museum. He will still want it. I'm sure we can find a graceful way to honor it. Lena gave him a thin smile. That means no. That means I don't want nostalgia deciding the campaign before we do. It was a fair point, and Grant delivered it well. Lena nodded. I picked up the bell and turned it over. The felt on the bottom had peeled away, exposing 2 screws and a faded rectangle where a label had once been. What did customers use it for? I asked Lena. To admit they needed somebody. Grant stopped pacing. I placed the bell next to the line I had written. Then it isn't nostalgia, I said. It's permission. The red recording light above the door continued to glow. At lunch, Grant found me in the seasonal aisle examining a display of snow shovels under a banner that read, "Winter is coming, ready or not. Your natural habitat," he said. "Threat-based retail? Operational realism." He handed me a paper cup of coffee. He had remembered that I took it black, which was the kind of small attentiveness that made people defend him. "That line is the campaign," he said. "I think so." "You think so?" The stores have to be able to carry it. If we promise judgment-free expertise, we need training language, clinic plans, and a way to collect problems without turning the counters into confession booths. He smiled. "This is why I bring you." It should have sounded like praise. I took a drink. The coffee tasted like hot cardboard. "I'd like to present the strategy at the concept review." His smile held, but something behind it paused. "We'll see how the deck comes together." "I'm not asking how the deck comes together." Mara. I built the strategic frame. Simone gave us the customer language. I found the platform. I should be in the room presenting it. "You'll be in the room, presenting." He looked past me toward the end of the aisle where Lena was speaking with Ray beside a pallet of ice melt. "You know I support you," he said. That phrase had a trapdoor in it. "Then say yes." He rubbed the side of his cup with his thumb. "The last time we put you in front of a full executive group, you froze." There it was, delivered quietly enough to pass for concern. 9 months earlier, I had stood in front of 12 hospital executives after 2 nights without sleep and lost the next sentence. Not the whole presentation. 7 seconds, maybe 8. I found my place and finished. The client still approved the work. Grant had stepped in during those 8 seconds. At the agency, the story became that he had rescued the room. "I paused," I said. "You went blank. And recovered. Because I gave you space. You started talking over me." He exhaled through his nose. "I'm not trying to relitigate it. I'm trying to protect the work." The seasonal banner rustled above us as the heating system came on. "From me? From a moment we don't need to risk." He said it gently. Grant rarely pushed when he could make resistance sound irresponsible. I set the coffee on a shelf beside a row of windshield scrapers. "The concept came from the workshop," I said. "The client watched it happen. Leaving me out would be strange." His eyes shifted toward Lena again. It was small, that glance. I noticed it anyway. "You'll have a role," he said. "Let me think about the structure." He walked away with his coffee still in his hand. I stayed beside the snow shovels until Tessa appeared around the corner carrying a boxed space heater. "Are we buying that?" I asked. "No. I wanted a reason to stand here. You could have pretended to compare shovels. I'm from San Diego. No one would believe me." She put the heater down. "What did he say?" "That he supports me. Condolences." I laughed, then hated how grateful I was for the laugh. Tessa looked toward the aisle where Grant had disappeared. "I heard him tell Lena he'd cracked the platform." "When?" "Before lunch. He said we cracked it. He said, 'I think I cracked the platform.' I reached for my coffee, remembered I had left it on the shelf, and let my hand fall. 'It's one sentence.' 'It's your sentence.'" It came out of Simone's answer. "And you knew what to ask her." From the stockroom, the brass bell rang again. Someone had found another truth worth keeping. Tessa picked up the space heater. "Write your contact report before he writes his." Back at the folding table, I opened my laptop and recorded the workshop decisions in the agency template. Customer tension, platform, contributors, operational requirements, next steps. I attached photographs of the brown paper, including the one where my blue pencil line sat beneath Grant's black marker. I copied Grant, Tessa, Lena, and the account lead. Before sending it, I stared at the contributor field. Then I typed my own name first. Grant's reply arrived 11 minutes later. "Strong recap. Let's keep authorship language collaborative until the concept is fully developed." I read it twice. At the end of the table, he was charming 3 regional managers with a story I had heard before. When he felt me looking, he raised his cup in my direction. I closed his message without answering. Above the stockroom door, the red recording light went dark. I answered him at 6:14 the next morning. Collaborative is accurate. The contact report lists everyone who contributed. His response came at 6:16. Perfect. By 9, the agency had turned the workshop wall into a war room. Bellwether occupied the 4th floor of a converted brewery where the exposed brick shed red dust onto anything left untouched for too long. The Hearthline team had pinned up my photographs, customer profiles, media maps, and a calendar built backward from the spring repair season. Someone had printed, "Bring us the problem" in 6 typefaces and taped them in a row. Grant stood with his hands in his pockets, studying the options. "The Bell photograph's better than I expected," he said. Tessa looked at me over her coffee. A junior designer named Adrian Cole had placed the dented brass bell against a field of Hearthline green. The image was strong, plain, recognizable, a little lonely. Under it, the campaign line looked less like advertising than an invitation. "I thought the bell was sentimental," I said. Grant didn't turn around. I said we shouldn't use it sentimentally. Adrian glanced between us, then became intensely interested in adjusting a pushpin. Grant pointed at the poster. "This is permission. It says help is available without showing some smiling employee in an apron." "That's what Mara said in the workshop," Tessa said. "Yes," Grant replied, "and now Adrian has made it visual. He said it easily. Not quite denial, not quite acknowledgement." Priya Sloan, the account lead, entered carrying 6 paper bags and the expression of someone who had already solved 2 emergencies before breakfast. She was compact, fast, and incapable of eating food while it was still warm. "Breakfast sandwiches," she said. Lena moved concept review to Thursday. Their board committee meets the following Monday, and Martin apparently thinks we're trying to turn Hearthline into a therapy practice. "Did he say that?" Grant asked. He said, "We sell bolts, not feelings." Ray had probably told him about the workshop. Grant smiled. "Good. Resistance gives us something to push against." "Resistance also controls the company's capital budget," Priya said. "Push thoughtfully." She handed me a bag marked E.g. no cheese. Priya remembered everyone's order because she believed attention was a renewable resource. She also believed conflict should be kept away from clients the way restaurants kept dumpsters away from front doors. "We need a testing plan today," she told me. "I drafted one last night." "Of course you did." Grant moved to the campaign calendar. "We should test Bring Us the Problem against a more aspirational line." "Which line?" I asked. He uncapped a marker. "Built for what's next." Tessa stopped unwrapping her sandwich. "That could advertise hardware, retirement planning, or knee replacements." "It's a control," Grant said. "It's a slogan-shaped beige wall." He gave her an amused look. Grant enjoyed Tessa when she was attacking anything except him. We tested both. The research company recruited homeowners and renters who had visited a hardware store in the previous year. Because Hearthline's stores varied so much, I split the sessions by region and by what customers had tried to repair. We showed unfinished storyboards instead of polished creative, so nobody could confuse expensive photography with a good idea. Built for what's next made people nod. Bring Us the Problem made them talk. A restaurant owner described bringing a scorched electrical switch to a Hearthline counter in a takeout container. A landlord admitted she had once searched online for metal thing that makes door close slow. A man who restored old houses said he drove 40 minutes past 2 national chains because Hearthline employees didn't treat ignorance like a character flaw. Grant was excellent in the observation room. He heard phrasing other people missed. He noticed that participants leaned closer when the radio concept began with sounds. A pipe knocking, a hinge squealing, the dry click of a dead switch. "What if we never name the object in the first 5 seconds?" he said. "Let people recognize the problem before we explain it." "That gives radio a game quality," I said. "But the answer needs to be an invitation, not a reveal." He nodded. "Write it." For 2 days, we worked the way we used to work before every conversation became a border dispute. He improved the film structure. I rebuilt the strategy around what testing showed. Adrian developed a visual system using circles that resembled the blue pencil marks from the workshop. Tessa priced 3 production levels and threatened to personally staple Grant to the floor when he suggested filming in 6 locations. Late Wednesday, Grant and I were alone in the war room when the research company sent its preliminary report. He opened it on the wall screen. Bring Us the Problem scored 28 points higher for brand differentiation and 34 points higher for likelihood to visit. The verbatim section ran for 12 pages. Grant leaned against the table and read in silence. "This gets me there," he said. I knew where there was. The executive creative director's office had been empty for 4 months. It had a door, clean windows, and enough distance from the main floor that people lowered their voices before entering. "It gets Hearthline somewhere," I said. He smiled without looking away from the screen. "You should let yourself enjoy a win." "I plan to. Do you?" He turned then. His face looked tired, the polish worn down around the eyes. "You walk around waiting for someone to take something from you," he said. I felt the words land because they contained enough truth to find an opening. "You told Lena you cracked the platform." She asked whether we'd found an idea. I said I thought I had. "That's different. To you. To English." He laughed once. "There she is." "Who?" "The version of you who'd be running strategy by now if she ever came into the room before the fight was over." I folded my arms. "What does that mean?" "It means you hide in the work until you have enough evidence to be angry. I came into the seasonal aisle and asked to present, and you made it a test of whether I respect you." Was I wrong? He looked at the research report again. "I want you presenting the customer tension," he said. 7 minutes. Then I take the platform and creative. My first instinct was to count what I had won. 7 minutes. A defined section, client visibility. My second was to notice what he had kept. "The platform comes out of the customer tension. It's a handoff, Mara. Presentations have handoffs. I should present the platform. You should nail the opening. Let that be enough for one meeting." "For whose comfort?" His jaw shifted. "Thursday," he said. 7 minutes. Then he left the room. I practiced until the cleaning crew began vacuuming around me. Not because Grant was right, I told myself, because he had made 7 minutes sound like a cliff edge, and I hated that my body believed him. At home, I stood barefoot in my kitchen with the dishwasher humming and presented to the dark window over the sink. I had no audience except my own reflection and the basil plant I kept forgetting to water. Customers do not arrive at Hearthline with projects. They arrive with interruptions. I stopped. Again. They don't say, "I'm replacing a compression valve." They say, "This started leaking at 2 a.m. Again. My voice sounded steady. My shoulders looked wrong, too high and careful. I lowered them and tried once more. On Thursday morning, Adrian handed me the clicker outside Hearthline's conference room. "Your slides 3 through 9, he whispered. "I'm aware." "I know. Sorry." Grant made me put speaker initials in the notes. I opened the deck on my laptop. Slide 3 had ME in the presenter field. So did 4 through 9. Slide 10, where the campaign line appeared for the first time, said GM. My name had been removed from the development credit in the footer. I scrolled back. The internal version from the night before had read M. Ellis/G. Mercer/A. Cole. Now it read Bellwether Creative. "Who changed the footer?" I asked. Adrian swallowed. "Grant wanted it cleaner." "Did he tell you to remove our names?" "He said client decks don't need process credits." Grant appeared at the far end of the corridor with Lena and a silver-haired man I recognized from Hearthline's annual report. Martin Vale walked with a carved wooden cane he seemed to resent needing. "Mara," Grant called. "You remember Lena. This is Martin." Martin shook my hand and looked at the blue carpenter's pencil tucked behind my notebook spiral. "You the one with the line?" he asked. Before I could answer, Grant touched my shoulder. "Mara led the consumer work that got us there," he said. It was perfectly calibrated, generous enough to stop me from correcting him without making me look petty, narrow enough to keep the idea elsewhere. Martin nodded. Consumer work. Grant guided him into the room. Lena stayed behind for half a second. I watched part of the workshop recording, she said quietly. You ask good questions. Thank you. My father asks bad ones until somebody gives him a useful answer. Don't let him knock you off your sequence. It was an odd kindness, specific enough to make me nervous. The presentation began. I did not freeze. Martin interrupted on slide 4 to ask whether our research company had recruited people who know which end of a screwdriver to hold. I told him yes, along with people who owned several kinds of screwdrivers, but still could not identify the component breaking inside their toilet. He grunted. On slide 6, Lena asked me to explain the embarrassment barrier. I used Simone's example and watched Martin's expression change. People really apologize at the counter? He asked. Constantly, Ray said from the other end of the table. Martin looked irritated, though not at me. For asking a question? They think it's a stupid question, I said. Only stupid question is the one that ends with water coming through the ceiling. Lena reached for the bell and rang it. Martin stared at her. You still have that thing? It appears to be the heart of the campaign. Grant rose smoothly as slide 10 appeared. Which brings us to the creative platform, he said. My campaign line filled the screen behind him. I set the clicker on the table. Grant presented beautifully. He walked Martin from skepticism to recognition without ever challenging him directly. He used the bell as a symbol of permission, then pivoted to the radio sounds and counter stories. He credited Adrian for the visual restraint. He credited Tessa for making the repair clinic scalable. When he described the strategic leap that connected embarrassment to invitation, he used the word I. I watched Lena watch him. At the end, Martin tapped his cane against the carpet. I hate that I like it, he said. Grant smiled. Those are my favorite words. It's a strong concept, Lena said. The strongest you've brought us. Grant lowered his head in modest acknowledgement. Then she turned to me. Mara, are the stores ready to deliver it? Grant answered before I could. That's our next phase. Lena kept looking at me. Not yet, I said. The room went still in a small, expensive way. Grant's smile did not move. I continued. They can be, but the promise depends on counter behavior, clinic staffing, and different rollout kits for different store formats. If we produce the creative before we build those pieces, we'll be advertising an experience that varies by location. Martin pointed his cane at me. Thank you. Grant stepped in, which is exactly why Mara leads our implementation strategy. There it was again, the soft relocation of my value. Afterward, Priya cornered me near the elevators. You were good, she said. I was 7 minutes good. You were good when Lena put you on the spot. Grant answered for me, and you answered anyway. She pressed the elevator button twice, as if the second press might improve management. Did you see the footer change? I asked. Yes. Does that concern you? It concerns me that we're discussing credit while the client is still deciding whether to fund production. So later? Her face softened. Document your role. Keep doing the work. We'll sort titles and credits before anything goes public. I already documented it. Grant told me to make the language collaborative. The elevator arrived, but neither of us entered. Priya glanced toward the conference room doors. He's under pressure. That doesn't answer me. No, it doesn't. She stepped into the elevator and held the door. You coming? I left my notebook. The doors closed between us. My notebook was on the conference room table beside the brass bell. The room had emptied except for Lena, who was gathering copies of the deck. She handed the notebook to me. A blue carpenter's pencil lay across the cover. I had left mine in the war room at Bellwether. This was in the stock room, she said. I thought you might want one that actually belongs here. I picked it up. One flat side bore the Hearthline name in chipped white letters. Thanks. She tapped the deck against the table to square the pages. "Grant is very good," she said. "He is. And you don't like when people assume saying that costs you something." I looked at her. She put the deck into her leather folder. "My father built a company by remembering every useful thing he'd ever heard and forgetting who said it. That habit looks charming on a founder. And on everyone else? It looks like a choice." She picked up the bell and left. Back at the agency, Grant had already revised the project assignments. He would lead concept development, creative direction, and client presentation. Adrian would lead design. Tessa would lead production. I would lead implementation strategy and retail enablement. The platform itself had no owner listed. I restored my name in the working deck footer. The next morning, my access changed from editor to viewer. I refreshed the page twice, as if permissions sometimes reconsidered themselves. They didn't. Adrian arrived carrying a roll of layouts under one arm and stopped when he saw my screen. "I didn't do that," he said. "I didn't ask." "You were about to." "I was about to ask whether you can export the latest deck for me." He set down the layouts. "Grant told me all edits have to root through him now." "Did he say why?" Adrian examined the edge of the table. "Version control." Tessa came in behind him and dropped a thick production binder beside my laptop. "Version control," she repeated. "The ancient practice of giving fewer people access after one of them corrects the credits." Adrian went red. "I have to go mount these." "Send Mara a PDF first," Tessa said. "He told me—" "I know what he told you. Send her the client-approved PDF from yesterday, which she needs to write the retail copy already assigned to her. I'll own the request." Adrian looked at me. "Send it to both of us," I said. When he left, Tessa opened the production binder. Her legal pad sat inside it, along with vendor estimates, studio holds, and a printed copy of my workshop recap. "You printed my email?" "I print every client decision that can cost more than my car. That is deeply unhealthy. It is why we have health insurance." She turned to the workshop recap. The contributor list was intact. My photographs were attached behind it, including the brown paper with Simone's sentence, my blue pencil circles, and Grant's black lettering above them. "I'm not building a trial exhibit," I said. "Good. Trials are expensive." "Tessa." She leaned back. "I'm building a job jacket. We're supposed to have one. The agency got loose about it because shared drives made everybody feel immortal." My laptop chimed. Adrian had sent the PDF. The footer still said Bellwether Creative. The speaker notes were gone, but the file properties listed Grant as author and Adrian as designer. Under concept development, the metadata read GM. Tessa looked over my shoulder. "That's deliberate," she said. "Yes." "What are you going to do?" I opened a new email to Grant, then closed it. If I confront him again, he'll call it a credit dispute. It is a credit dispute. It's also a campaign dispute, a budget dispute, and a client trust problem. I don't want him shrinking it to my feelings. "So don't argue about feelings." She tapped the binder. "Argue about the work." Grant avoided me for most of that day. He reviewed film directors with Adrian, held a messaging session without inviting me, and asked Priya to send all client communication through him, while creative is fragile. At 5, he appeared beside my desk. "Walk with me." We went to the stairwell because Grant liked private conversations in places where nobody could comfortably stay. The brick walls amplified every shoe scrape. He rested one hand on the railing. "You changed the deck after I finalized it." I restored the contributor footer. "You overrode a creative direction decision. Erasing names isn't creative direction." I removed all names, then added yours to the metadata. His face shifted, barely. "You're inspecting file metadata now?" "Adrian sent me the client-approved deck." "That wasn't my question." "No, your question was designed to make checking the record sound suspicious." He looked down through the center of the stairs. "I need you to hear how you're coming across." "To whom?" "To the team." "Which part of the team?" "People are uncomfortable." "Name one." "I'm not going to put junior staff in the middle." "You already did." He took his hand off the railing. The campaign is moving into a stage where I have to make decisions quickly. Every decision becomes a referendum on whether you're being properly recognized. It's exhausting. I thought of the contact report, the presentation handoff, the project assignments, the changed footer, my viewer access. You keep making the same decision, I said. That's why we keep having the same conversation. His expression hardened. Your role is implementation. My role is senior strategist. On this account, you own implementation strategy because you reassigned the platform after it tested well, because you demonstrated in front of the client that your attention is on delivery. Lena asked whether stores were ready. I answered. You contradicted the room. I told the truth. You enjoyed telling it. The accusation surprised me enough that I laughed. Grant didn't. You think I wanted the campaign to be unworkable so I could say so? I think being the person who sees the flaw makes you feel safe. The stairwell door opened one floor below us. Someone stepped in, saw us, and immediately stepped back out. Grant lowered his voice. I'm asking you to focus on the assignment you have. And I'm asking you to restore the record. If this continues, it becomes a performance issue. He left me in the stairwell. The next version of the campaign arrived 2 days later. Grant had expanded the film shoot from 2 locations to 5, added custom powder-coated counter displays, and replaced the modular clinic kits with 300 presentation boxes, wrapped in embossed paper. The bell would sit inside a molded insert beside sample repair cards and a 48-page guide. Tessa placed the new estimate on my desk. Guess how much permission costs? I looked at the total. That can't be right. It's right if each store receives a box that could hold a respectable watch. The estimate was $186,400 over the approved production range. Freight wasn't final. Neither were the fees for adapting the displays to stores with narrow counters. Did Grant approve this? He told the vendors to hold capacity. Priya told them formal approval was coming. From Hearthline? Tessa gave me a look. Right. Grant had also moved the repair clinic staffing, training sheets, and regional signage into a separate line labeled Retail Activation. That made the creative estimate appear closer to budget by placing the operational pieces under Hearthline's internal spend. He separated the promise from the cost of delivering it, I said, very elegantly. I opened the rollout model. Of the 214 stores, 61 could support the full counter display without removing required merchandise. 43 lacked enough staff overlap for the proposed Saturday clinics. Rural stores received less co-op reimbursement but higher freight costs. Did he see my store tiers? He removed them from the production brief. I picked up the Hearthline pencil Lena had given me and circled the budget gaps. The flat blue lead left rough, decisive marks. Ray answered on the second email. He confirmed the staffing limits and copied Simone, who sent photographs of 3 smaller counters with tape measures stretched across them. One had 22 usable inches between the register and a display of work gloves. Grant's proposed unit was 36 inches wide. Tessa found my original tiered estimates in the job jacket. Adrian quietly forwarded the earlier storyboard showing modular cardboard displays rather than powder-coated steel. None of it was dramatic. It was better than dramatic. It was dated. Priya came to my desk after the risk memo went out. The message had gone to her, Grant, Tessa, Lena, and Hearthline's finance lead. It stated the problem in 6 numbered points and recommended returning to the tested creative with modular store kits. No accusation, no adjectives. Priya held a printed copy. You copied the client. They're being asked to absorb activation costs that belong to the campaign. You should have let me handle that. I asked you yesterday. I was getting revised numbers. The studio holds expire tomorrow. She shut her eyes for a moment. Grant says the higher cost materials are essential to the creative. The materials weren't in the concept Hearthline approved. He says they elevate it. Tessa's modular version gives every store the same customer experience. This gives 61 stores a beautiful box. I understand the issue. Then why are you angry at the memo? Because you put the client in the middle of an internal disagreement. The client owns the stores. Priya lowered the paper. She looked tired rather than angry now. You're making it very hard for me to protect you. From what? She didn't answer. Grant did. At 4:30, he removed me from the account. The email was short. Due to a breakdown in collaborative process and repeated failure to follow communication protocols, implementation strategy would transfer to Priya. I was instructed to turn over my materials and avoid direct contact with Hearthline pending an internal review. My annual performance meeting, scheduled for the following month, was moved to Monday. Tessa read the message at my desk. "What materials?" she asked. "They took away your editing access." Apparently my dangerous pencil. Adrian stood near the printer, pretending not to listen. When he caught my eye, he looked away. That hurt more than it should have. I packed my notebook, the Hearthline pencil, and the basil green mug I'd had since my first week at Bellwether. The production binder belonged to Tessa. She closed it and held it against her chest. "I'm coming Monday," she said. "It's my performance meeting. It's my production record. They won't let you. Then I'll stand outside and develop a sudden interest in stairwell acoustics." The meeting lasted 38 minutes. Grant sat beside our managing director, Elaine Porter, while Priya joined by video. Elaine had built Bellwether by being calmer than whoever sat across from her. She read from a document titled Performance Alignment Plan. The concerns included territorial behavior, resistance to creative direction, failure to maintain communication boundaries, and client-facing contradiction. For 60 days, I would not lead presentations or contact senior clients without approval. My bonus would be held pending successful completion. I asked for specific examples. Grant cited the restored footer, my answer to Lena about store readiness, and the risk memo. "Were any statements in the memo inaccurate?" I asked. Elaine looked at Grant. "That isn't the only issue," he said. "It's a simple question." The numbers were evolving. Tessa's vendor holds had fixed expiration dates. Elaine raised one hand. "Mara, this process is not about debating each underlying business decision. What is it about? Establishing how you work within leadership structures." The phrase sat on the table like a decorative object nobody intended to use. I read the plan again. "If I sign, am I agreeing the allegations are accurate?" "You're acknowledging receipt," Elaine said. I wrote received, not agreed beneath my signature, and dated it. Grant watched my pen. When I stood, Elaine said, "We all want you to succeed here." I put the pen in my bag. "Then we want different things to mean the same words." The revised campaign returned to the modular budget 3 days later. Hearthline's finance lead had rejected the activation transfer. Tessa's store tiers became the rollout model. The powder-coated displays disappeared. Grant kept the embossed presentation box for the executive review. My name remained absent. I worked on 2 smaller accounts and listened to Hearthline continue through the walls. Conversation stopped when I entered the kitchen. Adrian sent me a message once, sorry, then deleted it before I could answer. On Friday afternoon, Priya came to my desk. "Hearthline requested you attend the final review." "Why?" "Lena wants the person responsible for retail enablement available for questions. I'm no longer responsible for it." "I know. Does she?" Priya pressed her lips together. "Grant told her your role shifted after implementation was completed." "That isn't true." "I know." It was the second time she had said it, and this one cost her more. "Will the performance plan allow me to answer if she asks a question?" Priya sat in the empty chair beside my desk. "I should have dealt with the credit issue when you brought it to me," she said. "I thought I could keep the work moving and fix it later." "Can you?" "No." The honesty made me angrier than another excuse would have. She handed me the final deck. The last slide read, "Bring us the problem, a Grant Mercer concept." Does he know I've seen this? Yes. And? He says leadership credit reflects creative accountability. I looked through the glass wall of the conference room. Grant stood inside rehearsing beside the projected image of Hearthline's brass bell. The client's final review began at 10 the next morning. The real bell sat beneath the screen. Grant unveiled the campaign I had built. He showed my films, my radio structure, my rollout map, and the blue circles Adrian had lifted from my workshop notes. Then he displayed the final slide. "Brilliant, my strongest concept yet," he said while my name disappeared. I stayed seated as he accepted every compliment. Lena watched me instead of him. Then she reached for the controls. "You'll have to explain something, Grant." She pressed play. The screen filled with a wide, badly framed view of Hearthline's stockroom. Brown paper covered the back wall. Ray sat with his chair tilted. Simone was turning a paper cup between her hands. Above the door, the red recording light appeared as a smaller red dot inside the image. My recorded voice asked, "What happens when they don't know what they need?" Grant's hand went still on the table. The room listened to Simone describe customers apologizing at the counter. On screen, Grant wrote confidence in black marker and said, "So we empower them." Then my voice asked Simone what she actually said. "You don't need to know what it's called. Show me what happened." The recorded bell rang. On screen, I picked up a blue carpenter's pencil. I wrote Simone's sentence on the brown paper, circled it and connected it to pictures. Broken pieces, wrong words. "Bring us the problem," I said. The bell rang once, then again. Lena paused the recording. The frozen image showed my hand beside the words. Grant stood several feet away, black marker capped at his side. She looked at the final slide still printed in the review booklet before her. "A Grant Mercer concept," she said. "Explain the gap." Grant leaned back. He needed only a second to recover. "Concept development is iterative. Workshops generate raw material, and my responsibility is to recognize what can become a campaign, then direct it through testing and execution." That sentence sounds complete in the recording. It's a strong line. It wasn't a campaign yet. "Of course it wasn't," Lena said. "We were 6 minutes into a workshop." Martin shifted his cane against his chair. Grant opened one hand toward me. Mara made an important contribution. So did Simone, Ray, Adrian, Tessa, and the entire client team. Creative leadership means synthesizing those contributions. "Then why does the slide name only you?" Lena asked. "The credit reflects accountability." "For what?" "The final creative product." Lena pressed play again. My recorded hand placed the brass bell beside the line. "What did customers use it for?" I asked. "To admit they needed somebody," Lena answered from the screen. Grant's recorded voice called the bell sentimental and warned against making Hearthline feel like a museum. Then I turned it over in my hand and said, "Then it isn't nostalgia, it's permission." The recording moved into a discussion of counter stories, radio sounds, repair clinics, store staffing, and modular kits. Each piece of the campaign Grant had just presented appeared in rough form around that folding table. He improved several of them. He proposed withholding the object's name in the opening seconds of the radio spots. He saw the visual potential of real messes. His contributions were there, visible and useful. So were mine. Lena stopped the video. Grant's face had gone pale beneath the conference room lights, but his voice remained controlled. "I'm not sure what outcome you're looking for here. I'm looking for an accurate account of the work. You have one. I led the campaign." Martin lifted his chin. "Did you come up with it?" "I led its development." "That's not what I asked." Grant glanced at me. It was the same look he had given me in the seasonal aisle, except now there was no concern in it, only calculation. "Mara," he said, "do you believe I stole this campaign from you?" The question was built well. Yes would make me emotional. No would protect him. Anything complicated would let him translate. My performance plan sat in my bag beneath the table. "I believe you removed my authorship after the concept tested well," I said. "When I restored it in the working deck, you changed my access from editor to viewer. You reassigned me from strategy to implementation. then cited my attempts to correct the record as a performance problem. Priya lowered her eyes. Lena looked toward her. Is that accurate? Priya drew a slow breath. Yes. The word barely carried across the table. Grant turned. Priya, I saw the footer change, she continued. Mara raised it with me. I told her we would resolve credit later, and I didn't resolve it. You're collapsing separate management issues into one narrative. Then separate them, Martin said. Grant's tone sharpened. With respect, personnel matters should not be litigated in a client review. I agree, Lena said, which is why I'd like to know why a personnel matter changed the authorship on work we're being asked to approve. Tessa slid a binder from the floor onto the table. Grant stared at it. What is that? The job jacket. We don't use paper job jackets. We do when vendors send paper estimates. Tessa opened the binder without hurry. She laid out my workshop contact report, the photographs of the brown paper, the original testing plan, and Adrian's early layouts with contributor credits in the footer. Then came the production estimates. Modular kits first, powder-coated displays later, the embossed boxes, and the revised version returning to the modular system after Hearthline Finance rejected the transfer. These aren't allegations, she said. They're the production record. Grant looked at Priya. Did you know she was bringing this? No. I asked Tessa to bring final estimates, Lena said. She chose what supported them. Tessa turned to the page containing the store tiers. Mara's implementation model is also the reason the current budget works. We can call that separate from the campaign if we want. The invoices won't. Martin picked up one of Simone's store photographs, a yellow tape measure stretched across the narrow service counter. What was supposed to go here? He asked. A 36-inch powder-coated display, Tessa said. The counter is 22 inches. Yes. Martin set down the photograph. Outstanding! Grant pushed his review booklet away. Every campaign changes between workshop and production. We are talking about normal creative direction as though it is misconduct because Mara is unhappy with how her role evolved. My face burned. He saw it and kept going. Mara is extremely talented. She is also territorial, distrustful of leadership, and willing to escalate routine disagreements to the client. Those are real management concerns. This presentation is becoming a referendum on me because she doesn't accept that originating a phrase isn't the same as owning the work. I could hear the hospital conference room in his words, the 8 blank seconds, the story that grew around them because I had let silence defend me. I took the Hearthline pencil from my bag and set it beside my notebook. You're right about one thing, I said. A phrase isn't the same as a campaign. Simone gave us the customer language. Ray and the other managers gave us the operational truth. Adrian built the visual system. Tessa made the rollout possible. You strengthened the films and found the structure for radio. Grant's shoulders eased slightly, as if I had finally become manageable. But the final slide doesn't credit any of them, I said. It credits you. The only person whose work became less visible as the campaign became more valuable was me. He opened his mouth. I continued. I didn't go to Lena about authorship. I went to you, then Priya. I restored a contributor footer in a working file. Each time I resisted being removed, you removed me from something else. The platform, the deck, the account, direct client communication. You created the escalation you're accusing me of. The silence afterward felt nothing like going blank. I knew what I wanted to say next. I simply let the sentence stand. Lena closed the review booklet. Hearthline is suspending approval. Grant sat forward. That puts the media schedule at risk. The schedule is already at risk if we approve work with a false provenance and an unresolved operating structure. We can correct a credit line today. This isn't a typographical error. Lena looked at Priya, then Tessa, then me. If Bellwether wants to continue, we need a written authorship record, the modular budget, and confirmation that Mara is restored as strategic lead with direct authority over retail delivery. Tessa retains production control. Grant will not lead this account. His chair moved back an inch. You're asking my agency to make personnel decisions. I'm telling your agency who will and will not manage our business. Martin touched the top of the brass bell but didn't ring it. Bring us the problem, he said. We just did. Grant closed his laptop. He left it on the table when he walked out. Elaine arrived at Hearthline 45 minutes later. She had driven from the agency without a coat, and fine rain darkened the shoulders of her blazer. Grant was in a smaller conference room with the door shut. Priya had gone in once and come out carrying his laptop. Elaine read the client's conditions. Then she examined the job jacket. Mara. Why wasn't I aware of the authorship concern before the performance meeting? I looked at the plan she had read aloud to me. You were. Her calm expression tightened. I was told this was a disagreement about collaborative behavior. The plan cites the footer I restored. Elaine turned to Priya. Priya looked exhausted. Mara raised the credit change with me after the first client review. I delayed addressing it. Why? I thought keeping Grant stable through approval was the safest option. For the account? Priya looked toward the closed door. At first. Elaine asked Tessa for copies of the production record and instructed all 4 of us to return to Bellwether. Grant left separately. The review began that afternoon and lasted 11 business days. It was not confined to one recording. Elaine interviewed Adrian, who produced Grant's written requests to remove contributor names and route all revisions through him. Shared drive logs showed when my permissions changed. The research report matched the strategy I had circulated before the platform was reassigned. Tessa's estimates traced the budget expansion and the attempt to move campaign costs into Hearthline's internal activation line. Grant disputed the interpretation of nearly everything. He argued that executive credit was customary, that my access changed to protect a live deck, that the performance plan addressed a genuine pattern, and that ambitious production options were part of his job. Some of that was plausible. Some of it had even been true before he began using it as cover. Elaine withdrew my performance plan on the 3rd day. She offered to restore me to the account on the 4th. I declined. We sat in her office with the clean windows and the door everyone had expected Grant to inherit. What do you need? She asked. In writing? If that's what it takes. It is. I gave her 1 page, my bonus restored, lead strategy credit on the campaign, authority over work for which I carried delivery responsibility, Tessa protected from retaliation for maintaining the production record, a required provenance section in every major project, file listing origin, development, and approval, not as a ceremonial credit, but as part of the job record. Elaine read the page. You're asking for process changes across the agency. The process failed across the agency. She tapped the line about authority. Are you asking for a promotion? I'm asking you to stop using responsibility as a substitute for one. That took longer. Grant was removed from Hearthline and denied consideration for executive creative director. Elaine offered him a senior role under a new review structure, with no sole control over staffing or authorship decisions. He resigned the next morning. His farewell email thanked the people who believed in ambitious creative leadership. He did not mention me. He joined a smaller agency 3 months later, where his ability to command a room would remain valuable, and someone else would have to decide what it cost. Priya apologized in the brewery stairwell. I kept telling myself I was managing him, she said. Then I realized I was managing everyone around him. I leaned against the brick wall. You left me alone in that room. I know. I didn't forgive her there. She didn't ask me to. We rebuilt trust in less satisfying ways. She included authorship in status meetings. She corrected people in real time. When a client praised her for a media idea Adrian had proposed, she said his name before accepting the compliment. Months later, I stopped wondering whether she had done it because I was present. Bellwether accepted my terms. My new title was Strategy Director. which sounded less important to me than the line beneath it defining decision authority. Tessa received formal control over production feasibility approvals. Adrian became the lead designer on Hearthline and put every contributor's name in the job record before he touched the first layout. The campaign launched with cardboard counter displays, 3 store kit sizes, and repair clinics scheduled according to actual staffing. The films used real broken objects. The radio spots began with the knock of a pipe, the squeal of a hinge, and the dry click of a switch that refused to work. Customers brought photographs, damaged parts, and descriptions that made sense only after 3 follow-up questions. Store traffic rose modestly at first. More important to Lena, service counter interactions lasted longer and produced more repeat visits. Simone began sending us weekly notes labeled "Problems Worth Bringing." Ray complained that his managers were competing over who collected the strangest broken object, then included photographs. At the flagship, the original brass bell stayed at the service counter through the campaign's first season. Lena replaced it with a restored one before the fall repair clinics. She called me to the store and handed me the old bell wrapped in brown workshop paper. "My father says this belongs in the archive," she said. "And you?" "I think archives have enough things nobody uses." The dent was still visible along one edge. The felt was still peeling from the base. I set it on my desk beside the chipped blue Hearthline pencil. Before the next difficult meeting, I read the names in the project record, closed the folder, and pressed the bell once. Its tired brass note carried through the open door.